to them because I was very close with them. Yeah, I was very close to them. Yeah, maybe I got extra straw. Look them up. They only hired the best guys to write the art scroll. Only the best guys. But he wrote it. He wrote the art scroll. What I said, what's Masechta. It was amazing. But he was an LA boy. He grew up, born and raised in LA. That's usually okay. Yeah.
Okay, Yevamos Beis Amud Beis. Michte. The Mishnah listed a number of ervis, a number of prohibited relations. But the Gemara points out to us, Kula me'achos ishi alfinan. The din that if an erva falls to one of the brothers, it potters, and it's an erva to him, it potters not only her, but it potters the tzoros, is taught in the Torah regarding the erva of a sister-in-law, your wife's sister. So the Gemara says, "Lisnei achos isha bereisha." Since that seems to be the index case mentioned in the Torah, and all the other cases are learned from it, they should have taught achos isha bereisha. Maybe you'll tell me that the Mishnah started with the most stringent prohibited relations. Rab Shimon, there is 4 types of capital punishment: skila, sreifa, hereg, v'chenek. And there's a machlokes tanoim, which is the most stringent one. The Chachamim hold skila is, but Rab Shimon holds sreifa is. And maybe if the Mishnah's Rab Shimon, bito and is sreifa, so maybe bito, bas bito, ubas bino, which were listed first, is because Rab Shimon is listing the ones with the most stringent capital punishment. So the Gemara says, "Yachi listening chamoitza bereisha dikat sreifa chamoitza ksiva." Well, if that's going to be the reason, they should have listed mother-in-law first, because the ikar din of sreifa is taught by chamoisai. V'od basar chamoisai lisnei kaloisai. And then, if that was the case, immediately after chamoisai, they should have listed daughter-in-law, because daughter-in-law is with skila, and the basar sreifa is skila chamura, which would have been the second most stringent. So the question is, why did the Mishnah start with bito? Bito kiven da asi midrasha. Bito is learned from a drasha, not directly from a pasuk. Chavivale. So Tanoim it's more chaviv for them to learn a halacha that's by a drasha. All of the other ones there's no psukim for them. It's all learned from drasha. Yeah, says the Gemara, but Iker Isarayu Behadeksibu. Yeah, regarding the fact that if these women are married or are going to fall to a Yavim and there's going to be a Ptur, that's all from a drasha. But there are psukim regarding the primary prohibition of these women. Now, where do we said bito ikar yisra midrasha, that the prohibition is we learn from a drasha. Damarava, Armli Rav Yitzchak Bar Avdimi, Asya heina Asya zima. It says we learn in Gzeira Shava that bito, no matter what kind of bito, let's say he raped a woman, that's called bito anusaso. That would also be prohibited. And there's also bito basishto, who came into the marriage with a daughter. That means all of those are usher. And Zima teaches me that they're taught that the punishment is sreifa. Asya Zima. So now you've told me that everything learned by a drasha is more chaviv to the Tana, lisni lachos isha levasof. So your wife's sister should be listed last because that's learned from Sukkim. So I did the Irabi Yisrachos Tana achos ishto. It lists achos ishto with all the other brothers and sisters. The list of lai bavel of asof, so that all should be listed at the end. And Achanami says the Gemara, Tana kurvi nokat. It taught the closest relatives first. Tana bito bas bno de kurve atzma. Daughter is the closest relative to a person. And you learned 3 generations down. Then we give 3 generations down for the wife. And then then we go 3 generations up. So then we took care of those close relatives. Then the Tana Achoisav de Krovi Atzmai. A sister is the next closest relative. Since we're talking about siblings, we talk about a wife's sister. Really, the case that we learned yesterday of Levi that's born after the death of Ruvain is a unique din where the Isser is not because of any kind of erva. So we should have listed Kaloisoi before Eishes Achiv Fly Bleilam. The Lomishum Kurva Udasira. Ela Aididar Beiser Achva. Again, since they were dealing with siblings, Tana Eishes Achiv Fly Bleilam, which is a sibling. Vahadar Tana Kaloisoi. So it was organized sort of by subject matter. My area, the Tana Poitrois, the Mishnah says they're potter. Listen to Oisrois. Why don't we say it's usher to mibiyabim them? Tana Oisrois avimina usher liyabim avol michlatz chalsa. Kamash below that no. You might have thought that it's usher to mibiyabim, but maybe you could do chlitza. Kamash below that it's a ptur. You could have said usher to miyabim and usher to lichloitz. So the question is, my ka'avid. It means there's no isser if you remove, the woman removes his shoe. The Gemara says, what do you mean? People will get confused. If they see her removing your shoe, they'll also do yibum. So, kiven de b'makam mitzvah hu da asirat zara. The co-wife is asr only when they fall b'makam mitzvah, when the guy dies without children. If the guy died with children, there would be no yibum. You could marry a tzara after the death of the brother. So v'shalom b'makam mitzvah shayi b'shem hachi tani poitros. Since it's permitted not b'makam mitzvah, they use the word potter. Umay eri tani minach litzah mina yibum. It says you're potter from both. Listening mina yibum l'chudei. You could have just potter me yibum. So itam mina yibum avimina mechlatz chotzad. Yivumi lo miyabma. I would have thought there's a prohibition to do yibum, but not to do chlitza. Kamash malon. Wherever there's a yibum possibility, there's a chlitza possibility. And if there's no yibum possibility, there's no chlitza possibility. So the lisni, why did it say chlitza and yibum? Lisni mina yibum mina chlitza. Or inami mina chlitza lechuda. Or it says, Abashol udam mitzvahs chlitza kodemis lemitzvahs yibum. In order to be miyabim, a brother's wife, person has to do it completely l'shem shamayim. He can't have any ulterior motives. Since that's very difficult in this situation, it's always better to do chlitza than yibum.
Is that a dirabonin thing? Meaning it seems to be from the Torah. The Torah is like be lakayim, the zera of the brother. Seems to be the emphasis. Am I wrong?
Correct, but we're going to see the Chachamim are going to teach the people to do Chlitza rather than Yibum. You have a choice. You could do either. And either is actually doing a mitzvah. You and I could say that the Yibum would be a better mitzvah, but Bizman Hazeh, where the motives are questionable, and you could be Asr Kores if you do Yibum and you don't have the right intention, so it's safer to do Chlitza. It's for
Okay.
safety. Now, the Mishnah started off by saying there are 15 types of women. Now, the Gemara is not a math book. Why does it have to say 15? I'll go ahead and count, and I know there's 15 there. By saying 15, it's coming to teach me something. Minyan Deresh Lamute it's coming to include another type of woman. And then also in the Seifa, it says the number. Minyan de Seifa Lamute Mai. Lamute de Rav de Ravasi. Rav talks about it, Tsaras Sota. Im Zinsa Ishto, if his wife had committed adultery, or he thought she did. V'lo Isha Acheres, and there's a co-wife, Umeis Below Bonim Shtein Pturos. They're still potter, even though one of them was Mizana and she can't live with her anymore. Ravasi Omar Tsaras Island is Asura. Let's say he's married to an islandess, one of these women who can't give birth. Shemaya Nasi islandess Vishacheres Umeis Below Bonim Shtein Pturos. The Gemara will teach us why that is later on. So l'Rav Ravasi Mutemai Isfir Luda Dodi. If each one agrees to the other svara, so then we have an extra number. Let's say you have a Ketana married to one of the brothers, and she falls to Yibum, and she does Miyun. So the co-wife is not Miyadim either. You're not allowed to remarry a wife after you divorced her if there's been an intervening marriage. And he went ahead and did it. So even though these marriages are somewhat weak, they use these, they still hold that it potters the tzara. The ilosfir lu that if they don't hold of each other, one of the numbers is to exclude the other shita. The other one comes to exclude either of these cases. L'Rav Ravasi Lisnu. So according to them, there's more than 15. Because these don't work through tzara tzara. Remember, if the co-wife falls to Levi, and then Levi dies and she falls back, these don't work with this. In the other 15 cases, you can create a scenario where there'll be a tzara tzara. But the case of Rav and Ravasi, it's not possible. The islandess is p'tura v'asur l'chol. They would be also for any brother to marry, because the Yisr is not because of relation. It's other issues because they're an islandess. Okay, Menon and Mili, where do you know that the Achos Ishto is the index case? Don't marry your wife's sister. Litzror legalos ervasa aleh b'chaya. And what do I need aleh? Ma tamid lomer. The fish nemar yivama yavo aleh. Shomei anefi lebachas mikol harayis ramos b'toy rakos b'daber. When the Torah says the Yavama should live with her, I might think that it's permission to live even with an erva. But never kan aleh and never lan aleh. It says by Achos Ishto Aleh Malan b'makom mitzvah, it's only a makom mitzvah yibum. V'am Rachmana lo sikach, and yet the Torah says even b'makom mitzvah you don't marry her. That teaches me that if there's an erva relationship, you can't marry them. V'ein li alehi, that's the girl, the woman herself. What about the co-wife? Sarosa minayin Talmud Lamer litzruor. V'ein li ele tsarosa sarosa minayin. If she falls to Levi, Levi dies and she falls back, it's still all the co-wives are usher. Talmud Lamer litzruor v'lo lotzur. V'ein li ele achos isha. All of this refers to your wife's sister. What about Shara Rayos Minayin, like daughter-in-law? What is unique about your sister's wife? Shehi erva. It's a prohibited relation. If you do it b'mezid, you get kares. If you do it b'shogeg, you bring a chatas. And we just proved from this pasuk, v'asur liyavim, and the yavim can't marry her. Av kol shehi erva. So any erva that chayav and dona kares v'shegaso chatas asur liyavim. The ainli alahein. That's them themselves. Sarosei minayim. What about the co-wives? Amrit ma achisishim yuchedes. A wife's sister is unique. Shehi erva. She's an erva. And we proved from the word litzror, vitzaroso asura, all the other cases of the other ervis, if there's a co-wife, they're also. From here the chachamim learned, there are 6 more stringent. Your mother, your father's wife, and the other 6 more prohibited arayas. Amrit ma'achis isham yuchedes. She erva chanos dona kores what she goes chatas. The efshali nasi la'achim. Now, Reuven marries Shimon's daughter, his niece. So he's allowed to marry his niece. But he's not allowed to marry his mother. So the other 6, none of the brothers can marry them. Efshali nasi la'achim asur liyavim v'tzaras asura. Av kol shehi erva chanos dona kores what she goes chatas. It's only those ervas that a brother could marry, beheter. Yotzu sheish arayos chamuros be'elu. Since a brother can't marry his mother, and he can't marry his mother-in-law, sarosein mutaros. She'ein sara elamei ach. Fine. Azar Shoman, you saw the law. Oynish minayin. Where's the punishment? Amr kraki kol isha sheyasemi kol atovoisa eila. Time in the cause of Rachmon Aleh. Halavachi avim achos isha miyabemes. So now comes a very interesting sugya for the next few blocks. If the Torah wouldn't have written Aleha, our Havamina would have been that if one of the brothers had married the sister, right, the sister of the wife, we would have thought that there would have been yibum for that woman. Why? You have an mitzvah say to do yibum. You have a lota say to marry achos isha. But there is a principle. Normally, whenever there's a mitzvah saseh and a lota say, the mitzvah saseh is doicha. Like when we wear tzitzis and there's shatnez on it. the asay of tzitzis overrides the lo taseh of shatnez. So the Gemara says, "Eimer Rabbeinu say asay v'dochi lo taseh lo taseh greida." That's if it's a regular lav where you only get malchus. Lo taseh sheyesh bo kores midochi. Living with achos ishta gives you kores. Maybe an asay is not doicha lo taseh like that. V'su lo taseh greida milon dedochi. How do you know, in general, that a mitzvah saseh is doicha lo taseh? Now we're going to have the next few blot to teach me that sugya of aseh doicha lo taseh. Good evening, Saul.
Good evening, Ernie. How are you?
Okay.